What's up, friends? Happy Thursday. Welcome into our members only Q&A. Thanks so much for being here. Different time today. Usually it's either at night, like 7 p.m., or usually around the lunch hour, around noon. So hopefully this time works for you guys. Happy to answer all of your questions per usual. Interesting comments today from one Matt LaFleur I can't think of his name, to Rock. Larry McCarron. That's what I'm looking for. I wanted to say Wayne Larrivee for some reason, but I knew that wasn't right. So Larry McCarron about Jordan being day to day. I still think there's probably some gamesmanship, and the wide receivers in the locker room, specifically Christian Watson, said something to the effect of that they're basically preparing for Malik Willis. So I still think it's Malik this week, but man, it feels like we keep getting good news about Jordan in some capacity, that this is not anything that's going to, be long-term serious, of course. And then I kind of wonder if this might be where he is back next week against Tennessee, which would be what a huge freaking win that could potentially be if they get him back. And now you kind of go into this game against Indianapolis where, man, if you could find a way to win with Malik Willis and then you get Jordan back next week against Tennessee and could pick up a win there, and then you come back against Minnesota at home, like, man, I'm not betting anything on it, on any of this. I think it's more likely that this probably goes wrong than it goes right. But can you imagine if all of a sudden they're 3-1 after Minnesota after all of this, and you're like, holy crap, what a gift that would be? No, I'm not jumping to any conclusions here. I'm not, just getting the hopium up or anything like that. A long ways to go, but maybe, just maybe, if you can pick up a win this week with Malik Willis, there is a path through this that isn't a complete and utter disaster, which when it first happened, certainly looked that way. Now, let's get to your questions. Richard, a lot of Titans fans seem down on Malik Willis. We know he has the talent, but they criticize his mental processing, afraid to throw as an example. What have you seen in your evaluation? I was just talking to John Papadopoulos about this in lacrosse on ESPN radio and lacrosse. Think back a little bit to Justin Fields, meaning what was his sort of Achilles heel? It was his time to throw. He held the ball way too long, didn't kind of get through his progressions quick enough, and sometimes did not either trust what he was seeing or would not just sit and rip the ball and get it into the hands of his playmakers. With Malik, when he has been a starter, that has been a similar sort of concern for him of just not kind of seeing the field well and getting rid of the ball and letting his playmakers do the work. As a QB, you ultimately want to be, you're a distributor, you're a point guard. Sometimes that gets miscast as a game manager. That's what you're supposed to be far more often than not. Now, do you want to have the Patrick Mahomes-esque ability to make big plays when you need them? Absolutely. No questions asked. But the best quarterbacks in the world are the ones that can run the offense the way that it's supposed to be run, get the ball out of your hands, let your playmakers play, and then come up with those special plays only when you absolutely need to. And I think that from a Malik Willis standpoint has been what he struggled with, is just kind of letting his playmakers do the play, getting the ball out of his hands, processing everything, getting through his progressions, and playing within the rhythm of the offense. And to be clear, this is a very rhythm-based offense. This is something that you have to be able to see the throw, make the throw, and not hesitate, or the timing of it is going to be all messed up. I think one of the bright things that we've seen from Malik Willis in this last preseason is he cut down that time to throw pretty significantly, which is a very big thing for him. Now, he was playing with second and third stringers, against second and third stringers in the, waning moments of preseason games. Is that going to tell you who he is as a quarterback? Probably not. But the fact that he made improvements on it was important. He threw the ball accurately in preseason. He ran only when he needed to, and he was very effective when doing so. There were a lot of things that you could look at in his preseason tape and really, really like. You go back and watch the games where he started and why Tennessee was down on him and maybe didn't trust him. I get it. I understand it. And it should maybe give Packer fans some cause for concern that this guy not only could not beat out Will Levis, who we saw last week have a nightmare of a game, he was the third string quarterback on that team. So if he's the third string quarterback to a team that has a quarterback who was an unmitigated nightmare last week, that should give you some cause for concern. But there's a lot of talent there. He's got an unbelievable arm. He's got great athleticism. But in and of itself, that does not solve the problems that defenses will ask of you. And to that point, when Malik Willis started in the NFL for the Titans, you know what he had? Unbelievable athleticism and an unbelievable arm. Those things didn't just appear now that the Packers traded a 7th round pick for him. He's had those since day one. The question is, Can you run the offense? Can you be accurate? Can you get the ball out of your hands? And now he's trying to do it in an offense that he just got here 3 weeks ago. This is a tough task for Malik Willis. There's no two ways about it. I'm intrigued to see what he looks like in this offense. He's got a lot of weapons. The Colts secondary is not good. From a run defense standpoint, they looked brutal last week. There are opportunities there for Malik Willis and the Packers to take advantage of it. But there are concerns that you have going into this game as to how Malik Willis can run this offense. And there's no two ways about it. I am cautiously optimistic, and I'm excited in a way to see what he can do if he gets that opportunity. But there should be reasons where you're like, this might not go great. Dragon Scale, what part of Josh Jacobs' struggle last week was that he was not patient for a hole to open up in the line? I sort of disagree with the verdict that Josh Jacobs struggled last week. Had it not been for the fumble, I thought he would have had a really good game. And the fumble, thankfully, was recovered by Bo Melton, but that's still a big negative on his ledger for the day. Can't turn over the ball, can't fumble it. And thankfully it wasn't a turnover, but it was still one that had the opportunity to be a turnover. So that was the big negative to me. I thought early on in the game, there was not much running room. There were missed assignments. Like the first play of the game, there's like 3 guys who block absolutely nobody. It had no real concern to me of like, this was a bad game for Josh Jacobs or anything like that. I thought this was a really nice first game for Josh Jacobs. I think he's going to be a very good player in this offense. Maybe one run here or there where he could have been a little bit more patient, or maybe could have seen the hole a little bit better, but no real concerns in that direction at all. Income options trading. What is my favorite color? I don't know that I have one. Mountain Dew green. I will say the Mountain Dew green, because that means something really great is about to happen and I'm going to get to drink a Mountain Dew. So I will say Mountain Dew, like nuclear green. If the Packers lose this week, does it, or green and gold too? That's an obvious one. If the Packers lose this week, does it increase the likelihood that Jordan plays in week 3? I don't think so. I don't think a win this week decreases the odds that he plays next week. I don't think a loss this week increases the odds that he plays. I mentioned this the other day in Pack-A-Day Live. I think it was last night. In the scheme of things, I understand we are in the here and the now, and every game that Jordan misses is a missed opportunity, and it feels like an avalanche that's coming on top of you and suffocating you, and it feels awful. In the scheme of Jordan Love's career, this 2 to 3 game stretch, 4 game stretch, whatever it ends up being, is the tiniest of stretches of like, it doesn't even measure on the scale of Jordan Love's career. They will be basing this entirely on the medical recommendation from the doctors. If they say he can go out and there's no risk of re-injury, or at least, a reasonable no risk of re-injury, then they're going to say he's going to play. And if they say, hey, we think he could play, but it's done, he's not going to play. This is a very small amount of time in an NFL quarterback's career, especially one that you just gave the richest contract. I know it's been beaten now by Dak, but at the time, the richest NFL contract ever given, a massive guarantee. This is your future. This is your franchise. This team for the next however many years will go as far as Jordan goes. And to risk any of that, it's not worth it. So I believe that the decision on Jordan will be completely a medical decision and will not be based. And this is not a team, by the way, which is a great thing to have. This is not a job that Matt LaFleur is fighting for his job and saying, no, we got to get Jordan out there. Otherwise I could be in trouble. Or Goody saying like, we got to get Jordan out there or I could get fired. Everyone's safe. Everyone knows that this is a long-term play. Yes, it sucks right now, but you base this 1,000,000% on the medical. And I guarantee you Green Bay will do exactly that. King Kermit, good to see you. Seems all but guaranteed Willis starts this week and Love is back in Tennessee. I wouldn't say either of those things. Maybe the first one is guaranteed. I still think there's a maybe slight small chance, but I very much expect Malik Willis to start in this game. And I don't think there's a guarantee that he plays next week. Maybe it's leaning, I would say it's leaning towards play. If we're doing like the New York Times, like election meter of like leaning or heavily leaning. I don't even know what the meters are, but like, or the different categories are, but I would say leaning towards playing maybe next week, but let's just take this one step at a time. And we just don't have the information, right? The Packers could be completely messing with us. They could know that he's not going to play until the Rams game. And they could be like, yeah, day to day, he could easily still play against the Titans or easily play against the Colts. He could easily play against the Titans. And this could just be complete, them just giving us crap and making it so that the opposing teams have to plan for Jordan, which is an advantage. And I get it. So they could be completely messing with us. And it could be that he's literally day to day, and we just don't know. We just absolutely do not know. So I'm not guaranteeing anything. This is just, we don't have enough information to make an educated decision on it. I think he is very unlikely to play this week. I think there's a chance he plays next week, and it seems to be trending in the right direction. That's my gut feel on the situation. We went over that. Is there any deadline besides inactives on Sunday when the Packers would have to declare Jordan out? No, unless they know he's out. If they know he's out and like it's unquestionable, then they do have to declare his status as out for the game when they give their final update. My guess is they're not going to rule him out. My guess is it'll at least be doubtful. I don't know. Maybe tomorrow we get the injury update and he's just listed as out. So theoretically, if they know for sure he's not going to play, they need to list him as out on the injury report tomorrow. And that just needs to stay the case. If they don't know that, if they do think there's a small sliver of a chance that he could play, then he would be listed as doubtful. My guess is he's probably listed as doubtful. If he's listed as questionable, that's a fairly good sign. But those would be the statuses that they would give tomorrow. But there's, other than inactives before the game on Sunday, there's no hard deadline, anything, again, other than they should, by the letter of the law, put him as out if they know he's going to be out tomorrow. Do you see the Packers defense also playing contained against Anthony Richardson, or do you see Jeff Hafley showing more exotic looks and blitzes? Would like to see more than a 4-man rush. I think they're going to be cautious. I think what we have to recognize with the game against the Colts is there were blitzes. Like there was the one where Keyshawn Nixon came dead to rights on a third down off the edge, and Jair just didn't play sticks on the play. He needs to play sticks on that play, in my opinion. And there were times where they came with pressure. The play where there's a guy wide open in the middle of the field on a third down, Quay's bringing pressure and they just covered it wrong. Or Quay wasn't supposed to come on it, one of the two. You have to pick and choose your spots regardless of who you're playing against. This is one that they'll have to feel out a little bit of. How do they want to sort of pick their poison? Do they think that the bigger threat is Anthony Richardson's legs? And if that's what they think, then they're going to contain and make sure that he doesn't get out of the pocket and that he has to stay in the pocket and actually read a defense. And if they think that that's his weakness, then that's what they're going to do. On the flip side, if they feel like, hey, no, we saw that 70-yard throw for a touchdown, we don't want this guy just standing in the pocket with a bunch of time and the ability to throw anywhere along the field, we need to get after him, then they'll get after him. But it just, regardless of what play is called, when they call blitz, they need to get there and they need to cover. Jair needs to cover on the outside. They need to cover the guy that's wide open in the middle of the field, or the blitz doesn't matter. And on the plays where they're containing, they got to make sure that they're containing. And especially on the interior, those guys have to do a better job of actually getting home and causing some pressure because, you know, whether it's containing them to keep them in the pocket or whether there's a spy, there's a lot of different ways to do it. You still can't let them feel comfortable. And that's what Green Bay did a little bit not a good enough job of against the Eagles. Was, yes, they were containing him, but he was just too comfortable. So there's a lot of different ways to go about it. I think they can get home with 4 better than they did against the Eagles. This Colts offensive line is not as good as Philly's. It's not bad, but it's not as good as Philly's. And I think those defensive linemen need to have a much better game, both in run defense and in pass defense, than they had against Philly last week. Chris, thanks for the question. Willis is surrounded with people who want him to succeed. Different players and different staff will make him shine. We got this. Go Pack, go. Chris, I love the optimism. I am intrigued. There's no two ways around it. I am intrigued. This is a quarterback who has a lot of talent. And sometimes, not often, but sometimes, player goes to a new team, new scheme, new players around him, new coaching staff, new ideas, and it clicks. And sometimes you go into that first place, and we've seen this before. That's why there's change of scenery trades, and sometimes guys have it click on their second, place that they go to. And this has happened for Green Bay before. Look at Rasul Douglas, right? Look at Devondre Campbell on the year he had an All-Pro year. Devondre Campbell struggled through his career, frankly, both before and after that All-Pro year, but specifically before that All-Pro year. And he got to Green Bay, right situation, right time, right teammates, felt confident and comfortable, and went out and put together a first-team All-Pro season. It was awesome that year. This was not a fluke. Maybe I could make a strong argument. Maybe he should have been like a second-team All-Pro and maybe not a first. Who freaking cares? He was awesome that year, and you got him for nothing. Rasul Douglas was a practice squad guy. I think he was on his 4th team that year. His 4th team in the year that they picked him up off the practice squad. And he comes in and he was awesome and becomes a really good player in this league. So Green Bay has done some of this before, where they've found some players that they think they can unlock, and they've unlocked them. Do I think that he's going to come in and, 260 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks, 40 yards rushing and a rushing touchdown? No, I think it's going to be difficult. I think it's going to be very hard, but there's always that one-off possibility. New scheme, new teammates, new coaches, new ideas, different level of comfortability. And he might have just a screw it mentality of like, I've got nothing to lose. I know what I did in Tennessee didn't work. Let me try doing it differently in Green Bay. And maybe that's all he needs is just that change of scenery. So maybe, possibly, sure. But I personally would not bet on it. Like I said, I think this is going to be a big challenge. Hopefully he's up to it. And I cannot wait to watch how it plays out. How do you see the defensive tackle rotation going versus the Colts? Will Wyatt Brooks wouldn't hold up in the run game? I don't think it's going to be too much different, quite honest. I think you're going to see a lot of Slayton and Clark on rundowns. I think you'll see Wyatt and Brooks rotate in more on obvious passing downs. We didn't see any Colby Wooden last week. My guess is maybe he gets 6 to 8 snaps in this one, but they need to do a better job of holding up against the run. Nobody really held up great against the run this past game. Wyatt struggled at times. Brooks struggled at times. Clark got blown off the ball more than I've maybe ever seen him in his career. And TJ Slayton struggled too. So those guys have to play better. You got Quentin Nelson in there who will definitely move some people. They've got some quality players along the offensive line. Needs to be better. You cannot let Jonathan Taylor get going in this game. That's a recipe for disaster. If Green Bay is having to struggle through a backup QB and Jonathan Taylor's just running wild, it's going to be a long afternoon. So they have to be better. They have to hold up at the point of attack. But I think the rotation probably stays relatively the same. Your weekly grade episode is always one of my favorite episodes. How many times do you need to watch a play when you are grading? It just depends. There are plays where, usually those little like bubble screens to the outside, you go and you do a quick glance at it to make sure, but like usually the offensive line and the running back and the wide receiver on the other side of the field did like nothing on the play. Like then there's not really a meaning to go back and watch those players over and over and over and over. So you can just kind of watch the play to the outside and maybe watch the 2 wide receivers blocking and then the wide receiver and what he did catching and after the catch. And I can probably finish that play on like 4 watch throughs, 1 initial watch through, then rewatching the 1 wide receiver blocking, 1 rewatch of the 2nd wide receiver blocking, and then a rewatch of what the wide receiver did on that play. On other plays, it can take upwards of 20 or more times watching a single play because all 11 players will be heavily involved. So I have to go through and watch all 11 of those. So I have my initial watch through, then all 11 of the players viewed specifically on the play. And then you can have, times where you're like not sure of like, all right, I need to go watch that. And then you watch it from a different angle. There's 3 different angles. There's end zone angle from the Packer side, end zone angle from the opponent side, and the sideline view. So, I mean, it may even be more than that. You can sometimes watch a play from 3 different angles and like watch a single player from 3 different angles on the play. So there can be a lot. And sometimes it's just a QB spike and I just have to watch up QB spike. That's it. Or a false start by the offensive lineman. All right, that guy jumped off sides. Easy grade. Don't need to watch anything else. So it can be very simple or it can be very, very complex. Plays where they're an elongated play where there's a lot of run after the catch and things like that can get very, very crazy that you have to watch them for an extended period of time. And yeah, I think that's probably the gist of it. I will say you become eerily aware of how many snaps there are in the game. Like it is something that you become a lot more cognizant of. It doesn't really matter. Like for the most part, there's usually right around like 130 snaps, kind of almost no matter what. And sometimes it can vary of like, it can be like a 70 and 60, a 65 and 65. There can be more than that. But man, you get one of those games where it's like, especially if it goes into like OT or something, and it's like 85 snaps on offense and like 70 snaps on defense. And you're like, oh my goodness, that is going to add a lot of work to my plate through the course of the week. So it definitely can add up, but it's a joy. I love doing it. I honestly love doing it. And it's just one of those things that the grades, the number grades are kind of cool. And it's kind of cool to keep track of since 2017. But I just love being able to talk about it in an educated way because I know I went through and I did the work. I know I saw, exactly what was happening earlier than maybe, and I start seeing trends, I think, earlier than just about everyone else because of it. I remember Clinton Dix is like the perfect example of this, where he was coming off his all-pro season, and the next year he looked like crap. He looked like crap, and then the year after that he looked like crap. And I kept saying he looked like crap, and everyone's like, oh, he's a Pro Bowler, he's an all-pro, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, he looks like crap. He's playing like crap. And nobody really wanted to be like, yeah. And then all of a sudden, like more and more people are like saying like, yeah, he's not playing well. And then Green Bay ditched him for a 3rd-round pick. And then I went on Washington, D.C. radio and I'm like, be careful. This guy's playing like crap. And everyone's like, no, he's going to be really good. He's a former first-team All-Pro. And he played like crap. And he got immediately cut after that year. And then he went to Chicago. And I told Chicago fans, I'm like, be careful what you wish for, because you're not getting the Clinton Dix that you think you're getting. And everyone's like, oh, he's a former All-Pro, blah, blah, blah. And of course, Clinton Dix does not do well in Chicago, and so on and so forth. And you see that stuff. And Jair, quite frankly, the same thing happened. Like the last couple of years, I've been saying, Jair's not playing well. Jair's not playing well. Jair's not playing well. And people are like, oh, he's a former first-team All-Pro. It's not to the level of it is not that bad. There are still some really good things that Ja is doing, but it is not to the level that we saw early in his career. To the point, these are my grades on Ja year by year. And sorry, I know I'm going off of random tangents here. Let's see. 2018, Jair Alexander, plus 7.0 grade for the year. 2019, Jair Alexander, plus 8.95. 2020, Jair Alexander, plus 13.55. 2020, Jair Alexander only played those first few games earlier in the year and then the playoff in a very small sample size up until the injury, plus 2.95 grade. And then came back in 2022, plus 0.8 on basically a full season of grades, plus 0.8. So took a major dip in 2022. 2023, negative 1.0. Negative 1.0 in 2023. First game in 2024, negative 0.75. So you're talking about somebody in 2019 who had, was it 2019 or no, 2020, right? 2020, who had a plus 13.55 grade. Just a massive grade almost every single week. In fact, one negative grade on the entire season, a negative 0.3 in week 9. Negative 0.3 in week 9, graded out well in the positive in pretty much every other game. And then 2022 gets hurt. 2023 plays slightly above average ball. 2022 plays slightly above average ball in the time that he gets. 2023, negative 1 grade, slightly below average ball, and not obviously a great start to this year. So you just see those things and you can speak to it regardless of what somebody's making, regardless of their All-Pro status or, who, the biggest fans of them people are. The tape does the talking. And I can just point to it and say, this is what I saw on tape. And it's not always perfect. It's not always exact, but it definitely allows me to speak on it with confidence because I'm going and watching every player on every play. And you don't miss anything. So screw the grade number. It's more of me being able to see it week in and week out. So sorry for the long tangent on that. John Kramer, is LVN's lack of development why the Packers kept 6 DNs? Maybe Cox or Mosby will develop into a better pass rusher. I don't think so, John. I don't think that plays a part in it. I think you keep those separate. To me, it is, first of all, I thought LVN had a good game this past week. He only played, 16 to 18 snaps. So he's the number 4 edge rusher right now. But I thought in the snaps that he played, he was actually more effective than maybe any other edge rusher on the day, quite frankly. So that was a promising sign. He actually had a couple nice pass rushes against Jordan Mailata, which Preston Smith had none. He had none. So there was actually some positives to take away from LVN in that game. He just needs to do it consistently. The more he plays, or the more he shows that he can do, the more he's going to play. But I don't think the Cox and Mosby decisions were based on LVN. I think it is, you're just going to need pass rushers through the course of the year. I think they saw upside in those guys, and I think they made those decisions independent of anything that was going on with LVN. Thoughts on Emanuel Wilson? Man, he looked great. He looked really, really great. And I will add on to that the same thing that I said in preseason. The running back, Emanuel Wilson, meaning the running portion of his game, that box has been checked for a while now. We saw it in preseason 2023. We saw it in preseason 2024. And now we saw it in the regular season in 2024 in his first week against the Eagles. That dude can run the football. There is zero question about that. Like I said, that box is checked. He's good to go. You don't have to ask that question anymore. We know he is an NFL caliber back with the ball in his hands. No question. The questions will be, what can he give you as a receiving back? What can he give you in blitz pickup? And every time Ben Sermons gets asked about it, he keeps saying he's got a lot of work to do from a pass blocking standpoint. And we can see as a pass catcher, he's never going to be a route runner extraordinaire. Probably can be a guy that catches a couple checkdowns here and there, but it's probably always going to be, maybe leaving you wanting a little bit more. And the truth is, in the NFL, he's not really a special teams guy. He's not a pass catcher. He's not a pass protector as of yet. So he's good at running the football. That's his thing right now. Now he's good at it. That's great. I think he showed that this can be somebody you can give the ball to in any given moment, and he can make things happen. There's value for that. But we also know Josh Jacobs is going to be the guy that's running the ball far more often than not. And Marshawn Lloyd might eventually develop into that number 2 back. And what you really want from your number 3 back, as maybe unsexy as it might sound, you kind of want a Patrick Taylor. Somebody sometimes that when you're using that active roster spot on somebody on game day is somebody that, yeah, you can hand him the ball and he'll be fine, but he can catch the ball out of the backfield. He's great in pass pro, and he can give you some added value on special teams. That is a more valuable number 3 running back, because if the only thing Emanuel Wilson does well is run the ball, which he's very good at, we've covered that, he's not in the game plan to run the ball when everyone's healthy. The majority of those carries are probably going to Josh Jacobs and Marshawn Lloyd. So it is paramount for Emmanuel's long-term success that he continues to round out the rest of his game. But zero question, he's a good runner. Zero question. Really, really good back. I thought he looked so clean running the football this past game, and he can continue to do that. Now, can you add some of those other pieces to your game so you can get active on game day, so that you can get out on the field more, and you can get more of those runs that you are very clearly very good at performing? All right, Richard, one of my favorite moments this year was adding the word subterfuge to my vocabulary from draft season. Could the Packers be using subterfuge in regard to Jordan Love's status? 1,000,000%. No two ways about it. I would say that this is subterfuge or gamesmanship, or whatever you want to define it as. It's more likely that than that he actually plays, but only time will tell. We'll have to kind of wait and see. But glad you were able to expand your vocabulary. Really enjoyed your video with Mike Wall. His play breakdowns are awesome. He's the best. I was so happy that he's back for another season. I'm hoping that can continue on until I'm done doing this, whenever that ends up being, hopefully years and years and years and decades down the road. But he's a joy to talk to, and I get something out of it every single time. Every time I learn something, I feel more educated coming off of it. So hopefully everyone else feels that way as well. Just in my opinion, one of the best things that we put out in the podcast every single week. And that's a huge testament to what Mike brings to the table. And it is rare that you get the total package, meaning former player who follows the game at an extremely high level still, who understands all the X's and O's, who understands the, kind of minutia of the game, and can speak super educatedly about everything, and in a way that's understandable to people who aren't hardcore football geeks, right? The complete package there that he has is unbelievable. In a way, I'm shocked that he has not got picked up, and maybe it's just not his interest, but from like a more national standpoint, he's really, really good at breaking down the game, and we are beyond lucky to have him here on the show. Any book media you would recommend for someone trying to get into the finer details of football, coverages, offensive linemen, alignments, etc.? It always depends on what your level is. Hoosier Cards. One book that I always recommend if you're like just starting to get into the more detail of the game is a book called Take Your Eye Off the Ball. Trying to see if I can find it here. Got it on my bookshelf somewhere. I don't know where it is. Sorry about that. I was going to bring it over and see if I could show it to you. There it is. No, maybe that's not it. All right. I'm done looking at it, but it's a really, really good book. I did find it. I'm going to get it. Be right back. Pat Kerwin. So this is Take Your Eye Off the Ball by Pat Kerwin. Great way to kind of start just getting into some of the general like stuff of the game. Now, if you're beyond that, then it's probably not for you, but just kind of talks about, I don't know, all different aspects of the game that, so many people are just watching the ball in every play, and like how to watch all these different positions and kind of things that actually make up the game that you're probably not accustomed to thinking about. This is sort of like what I would consider, if you're just a casual fan and you want more of like a 101 or maybe like a 201, this is a great way to start. And then once you have this, then you can expand to sort of some other stuff. But then it just kind of depends. And I would almost then recommend of like, just start going out on YouTube and watching like coaching clinics on different schemes and defenses and offenses and getting the X's and O's of that stuff a little bit more. A great offensive line coach from Howard, or offensive line book from Howard Mudd, The View of the Offensive Line, Coach Terry Shea on quarterback play called Eyes Up. What else do we got? There's a ton. It just depends. Like, just kind of figure out what you want to sort of dabble in, and then you can find a million different books on that. But great overarching book that, again, just sort of will get you to start taking your eye off the ball and understanding the game at a little bit of a higher level. Take your eye off the ball. Pat Kerwin, really, really good stuff. Terrified of Richardson running, flashbacks of Kaepernick. We don't need to bring that up, Alex. Listen, they did a great job on Jalen Hurts. I think to some extent, having Jalen be the first quarterback that you play, probably not a bad thing for this team. And it kind of leads them into a little bit more of Anthony Richardson. We'll see how they play it. Richardson's a stud. He can definitely beat you with his legs, but hopefully Green Bay can get in and out of that game with not too many rushing yards allowed to the big physical freak specimen of a QB that Anthony Richardson is. Seems good systems help quarterbacks succeed. Case in point, Sam Darnold, as long as the talent is there too. Really interested to see Sam Darnold and to see if that was just you know what, he was just playing the Giants. Let's not make too much out of that. Or was that real? He's got one of the best systems. It's why I was very, very high on JJ McCarthy going to that team, because I think their Kevin O'Connell, their coach, is a phenomenal quarterback whisperer. I think bringing Josh McCown in to that team was a really smart move as a QB coach. They've got the maybe best 1-2 wide receiver duo in football. I mean, certainly Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle will have something to say about that as well. But right there with Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson, they'll eventually get TJ Hawkinson back. You've got a running back now in Aaron Jones, two really good offensive tackles in Darrison O'Neal. That's a really good supporting cast, from coaching staff to position coach to everything around you. And yeah, you put somebody in there with talent and they show what they can do. And again, sometimes this stuff clicks at different times. Look at Baker Mayfield right now. Baker is clicking on all cylinders in Tampa. It was an impressive week one. We saw what he did against Green Bay last year. He looks like nothing like the quarterback that he was in Cleveland. And look at the situation he was in Cleveland. You know, you've got Hugh Jackson, and then you've got, Freddie Kinchins. And then from there you go Stefanski, which was fine, but it just didn't seem to fit there. And then he goes and has to play for the Panthers and the Rams. And then he settles into Tampa, and you get in the right situation. You got, Godwin, and you've got Mike Evans, and you've got a team that supports him, and look at what you can do. So with Malik Willis, maybe Tennessee was the wrong spot for him. Maybe he comes to Green Bay and it clicks. That'd be great. Again, not betting on it, but not betting against it either. I'm excited to be at the game Sunday. Lots of unknowns, but this gives the young team a chance to further develop. Who will be coming out of the tunnel during the intros, offense or defense? I don't know. They do every other, so it just depends what they start with. I'm wondering, with Jordan out for this game, they probably do defense. My guess would be defense coming out of this one, and then offense. I don't know. Maybe the preseason game dictated that. I can't remember what they did in preseason, so I don't know. I would love to tell you, Adam, but I just don't know exactly who it'll be. But if they have the choice, my guess will be defense in this one, with Jordan likely being out. So the average time to grade a game is, and this is another one that can vary. Sorry, bugging here. I can usually probably get, I don't know, my guess is maybe like it takes like a full, like almost like work day, if you will, like 8 hours, maybe a little bit less than that. So I would say somewhere between like 6 and 8 hours, depending on how focused I can get in on it. And then, usually I'm, pulling a couple clips from it and posting it on Twitter during that as well. So probably somewhere in that 6 to 8 hour range would be my guess. Kind of takes like a full day, and then go and do the article over on Packer Report, and then obviously the podcast about it here as well. So all in all, the grades portion is, it's a decent chunk of the week, maybe a 10 hour in total of grading it, putting the article together, and cutting the clips, and then also talking about it on the podcast. So yeah, it's definitely a big chunk of the week. What were your thoughts on Bullard and coverage? Ross said he didn't cover well in one of the videos he posted to the channel. He was put in a lot of situations to go chase and tackle. I'd have to think back on specific plays that he was asked to cover on. I think there was one where maybe he gave up a little bit of cushion on something, but the more I remember him was when he was doing really well chasing and tackling. He had the really bad angle on the out and up to AJ Brown. Had one other play where he missed the tackle entirely. But I thought overall I mostly came away impressed with Javon Bullard And I know obviously Mike and I talked about that today. I know Mike was impressed as well. He's going to be, I think, a really good player in the defense. I will say during the course of camp, I thought coverage was maybe the thing that is going to be maybe the weaker spot of his game, but I can't recall a play off the top of my head where I'm like, oh my goodness, get him out of the coverage situation. But it is why I've not been, if you recall, as soon as I did the breakdown video of him immediately following the draft, and I've been on this the entire time throughout camp as well, I'm not a Javon Bullard in the slot guy. Just not. I think he can be okay from time to time there, especially if it's kind of disguised. But I don't think that that's the player that you want full-time in the slot. I really don't. I don't think the coverage is good enough to dictate that. But I didn't see anything egregious on watch through that at least that I can recall off the top of my head. Trav makes beats. Andy, do you think the traits of a sumo wrestler would translate to offensive line, maybe a potential international pathway program candidate? I do not. I have thought about that in the past, but no, I do not think that would ultimately be conducive. I want to know though. I always think there's got to be a sumo wrestler like that could do like the hockey thing. I think this is one of the things that was debunked actually. Now that I think of it, I think like the Sports Science show debunked it, but man, it just feels like there has to be somebody wide enough. Maybe it's not even a sumo wrestler, but like wide enough to be able to block a hockey goal. Like it's a small enough thing. And I think this is one that was debunked. Let me see. Sumo wrestler, hockey goalie. Sports Science, a sumo goalie. Yeah. And they debunked it, I think. Yeah, they pit NHL sharpshooter George Peros against a sumo goalie, and it did not work. I still feel like maybe it's not a sumo wrestler. There just has to be somebody that's got the right proportions of a hockey net. I refuse to believe that there's not, or at least that it's like just enough of a crease where you can just kind of go like this. I don't know. I'm probably wrong. That's my spiel for the day, though. But no, unfortunately, no, I do not think so. Who do you think gets the first Lambeau leap of the season? Somebody asked me this yesterday. I said Malik Willis. I'm going to say Malik Willis on a rushing touchdown. How would you feel about a return of good old Kirk Benkert to serve as backup for a few games? I'm sure he can be coaxed out of retirement. I will answer this as nicely as I possibly can. I do not in any way, shape, or form believe that Kirk Benkert, it would be the answer to a third quarterback, fourth quarterback, fifth quarterback, or anything. I don't see it personally, and don't think Green Bay has any interest in that whatsoever. And I do not think you'll see Kirk Benkert play in the NFL. I don't even think he'll get a practice squad thing going forward. So I'll just put it that way. Fritz Shermer's books are really good. I do have one of his, and I haven't had the opportunity to read it yet. So I definitely need to do that. Now I'm trying to wonder where it is, but I do have it around here somewhere. But yeah, got to definitely get to that at some point. Rick agrees. Sometimes quarterbacks need a little time. It's too bad they rarely get it. Tom Brady just went off on this, what, a couple weeks ago, of how like you need time and development, and that's part of it. And in the modern NFL, you just rarely get it. And we saw how important it was to Aaron. We saw how important it was to Jordan. It is a huge part of it when you can get them the time to actually grow and develop. It helps. And we'll see if it can help Penix in Atlanta, or if he might have to play sooner rather than later, depending on if that first game from Kirk Cousins was any indication. But yeah, you wish there was a better program for these QBs that they could go through and develop it. And I don't know what the NFL can do to step in and try to help some of these teams and developing it, but it is such a huge part of the game. And there was so much really bad quarterback play in week one. Like you could tell, quite frankly, Caleb Williams wasn't ready. Bo Nix was not ready. Daniel Jones just isn't good enough. Like you need to figure out something. Look, we just talked about Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield was not ready his first few years. And you end up with these lost years and lost seasons where, man, imagine if all these quarterbacks were actually ready and good when they got to the league, how much more fun the league would be. But instead you end up with like 20 guys maybe that are actually good at quarterbacking their teams, and some really bad football because there's not enough good quarterbacks to go around. Alex, good to see you. I feel like the game is boom or bust for the offense with Malik at QB. Either they'll have a great day with creative play calls and pick up chunk yards, or it'll be a struggle because they can't throw. I might disagree with you on this one, Alex. I think this probably ends up somewhere a little bit in the middle, where they score somewhere between 17 and 20 points, and it's a grind probably no matter what. I don't think there's a world where Green Bay puts up 30, at least not on offense. Maybe they could have a crazy special teams defense day or something, but I don't think there's a world where they put up 30. And I don't think there's a world where they get like, under 10 points. I think this probably ends up somewhere between like 13 and 20 points for Green Bay. Maybe 13 and 24. I think there's a small, thin window there of where this ends up. And hopefully it's not anything under 13. That would be obviously disastrous, but my guess is this will fall somewhere between 13 and 24 points for the offense. Think the Bears get Caleb to do better before the Pack face him, or is he just no? Caleb's going to be fine. He's going to be a really good quarterback in this league. As far as if he's ready for Green Bay by the what's after the bye week, I don't know. We'll see. He'll be better than he was this past week, but it'll take time. I have no doubt it's going to take time, but I still have a lot of belief in Caleb Williams. I think he figures it out, but they need to put him in better positions to be successful, and Caleb just needs to be better in those situations. But it will take time. It may not be this year, but I still am very, very bullish on Caleb Williams overall. Sumo at nose tackle. I'll say this. If we haven't seen it yet, there's a reason for it. And we also saw, a couple things. Remember, Brock Lesnar got a chance at defensive tackle for the Minnesota Vikings. And that dude's a freak. I know he's not a sumo wrestler, but he's a UFC guy, professional wrestler. And that dude can do anything. And I think he maybe got on a practice squad, but he couldn't do anything for Minnesota. And then Gabriel Stevenson, Olympic wrestler, who's got some off-field stuff that we don't need to get into, and also tried out for NXT and WWE and had a cup of coffee there. He's a big-time Olympic wrestler, dude, and he couldn't make it out of camp. I think he is on their practice squad, if I remember correctly. Maybe he didn't. I guess he didn't. No, I don't think he is on. No, so he's not back on their practice squad. So I don't know if he picked up anywhere. I think he's a free agent. Yeah. So he's a free agent right now. So even him too, Olympic wrestler, couldn't do anything. So not that we need to spend a ton of time on this, but they have tried, unique players at that position in the NFL. Brock Lesnar and Gabe Stevenson, two examples of that. By the way, former wrestler Lex Luger, former Green Bay Packer, if you didn't know that. So that's a fun little piece of knowledge there if you didn't know. So listen, I'll try anything at kicker at this point. He was terrible. Yes. Gabriel Stevenson was not a good professional wrestler at all. And everyone was against him because of the outside of the ring stuff anyway. That was not a good situation. That ended up good for WWE that he moved on and tried to do something else, quite frankly. I wish teams would designate players to the UFL to get quarterbacks more experience like in the NFL Europe days. I do wish that there was something a little bit more like that. Also, how cool would it be if eventually the UFL had was 32 teams that were all minor league teams of an NFL franchise, where you could go and send players there, move them down, have them play there in the off season, continue to develop. That would be pretty freaking cool. I think there would probably be a little bit, maybe too much wear and tear on players' bodies for that, but there would definitely be something cool if that were, ended up being the case at some point. Lex Luger for the Hall of Fame this year. He's not in yet. That surprises me. Is there a drama between WWE and Luger that I'm not remembering? But yeah, he should definitely be in if he's not already. Imagine the UFL got turned into the G League. Yeah, we just talked about that, King Kermit. All right, friends. Any other final questions? Otherwise, I'm going to get out of here in a couple minutes, probably. Give you guys a couple more seconds. All right. Going once. Take a drink of soda. I'll give you a couple more minutes. Going twice. Lex had the stuff with Miss Elizabeth. I don't know if that's the reason. That's right. I slightly recall that. But yeah, you should probably be in. Probably sooner rather than later. Should I make for dinner? Cacio e pepe. Super easy to make, and it's always delicious. What Luigi's Pizza are you destroying next? I'm going to go a pepperoni riser next. The fresh dough pizza. I think that's where I'm leaning. That sounds really, really good right now. You literally made my tummy rumble doing that. Have a good night, all. Appreciate you. Good night, y'all. All right. That's a great way to end it. Appreciate you guys a ton. Hope to see you all soon. Happy hour tomorrow, 4 p.m. Central Time. So that'll be tomorrow. Probably no pregame on Sunday, but my hope is 5-ish p.m., 4:30 p.m., 5 p.m. for a post game on Sunday live. So keep an eye out for that as well. See you all very soon. Appreciate you all being members. Check out the Aaron Nagler video from today. Also, Ross Uglum has a video out today for members only, so you can check that out as well. Until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.